Well,
They shut the door.
what?
They shut the door.
Oh. All right, we're live now.
Okay.
I'm not sure Judy. I never heard back from Judy, so this might be all we get.
Same to you. He's live.
What's that?
Overshooting.
Oh, Judy, good. Everybody's here. Yeah, what's her name?
Are you expecting Kathy?
Move it.
Megan?
Yep.
Are you expecting Kathy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not quite. I have 350. Going to the wrong place.
Good, I wasn't the only one.
It's dark down there. Chamberlain, look all these jerks. Oh, this is us. You just have the BGA. Yep. Time for a record.
Wrong Thomas hand.
Yeah, it's all 7. Yep.
I'm here.
Okay. We got about 2 minutes.
might be some viewers on YouTube. Okay, but no one is. No one's joining Zoom, I don't think.
All right, welcome to the Hagerstown Planning Commission meeting of September the 9th, 2020. The entire meeting is being held virtually via Zoom. It is being recorded. And we ask that those who might have their phones nearby to mute them or put them on vibrate so as to not cause a lot of audio problems for us. With me today is the entire Planning Commission, Jim Stone, Ron Thomas, Chris Davis, Judy Wheeler, Colin Poscaroo, Shelley McIntyre. Also, on the call, we have Kathy Marr, Director of Planning and Code Administration, Steve Bachmiller, Planning and Zoning Administrator, Megan Flick, our planner, and Debbie Calhoun, who is the glue of the whole operation. Our first our item on our agenda is the roll call, which I've just conducted. We are all here. I'll move on to the approval of the minutes that were submitted to you in advance for August 31.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and second for approval. Is there any discussion?
I just have a question. This is Judy. On page 2, on the next to the last paragraph, and I know we were talking about the name of all this, but the sentence talks about, and the proposed driveway connection to Hager's Crossing Drive, and Hager's Crossing Drive.
Yeah.
Oh.
Looks like it doubled up, didn't it?
Called me being in a rush writing things. The intention was to draw attention to the fact that it's between, let me see here. Between the western property line and the driveway, which connects to Hager's Crossing Drive, and then south of Hager's Crossing Drive. That's what was intended.
So that should read, and south of Hager's Crossing Drive.
That would work.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it okay with you, Judy?
Yep, that's fine.
Very good. Any other questions? Corrections? Not hearing any. I assume we're ready for the vote. Motion's
There's
made
one
for
more
approval.
correction.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, there's one more correction. It's referring, in the minutes, refer to the Hager's Crossing Shopping Center. It should be the Hager's Town Crossing.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is Hagerstown Crossing Drive. Yeah.
The shopping center, the development, the residential development is Hager's Crossing.
Right, 4 lines up, right.
All right, Debbie, you okay with the changes? You got them? The motion maker and seconder are okay with the changes?
Yes.
Yes,
Jim, you made the motion, right?
Yes.
I didn't record that. And who seconded?
I did.
Thank you.
Ron.
Ron. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? There's note that we're all voting and it passed unanimously. Then we move on to our only other item. Whoa, there's 2 other items on there. I've missed it. No, we have the Planning Commission Business Board of Zoning Appeals agenda for September hearing.
The agenda that you received, there was 2 cases that were filed. However, one has since been withdrawn. That's the one on Basil Boulevard. just to give you a little bit of a heads up, the intended tenant of that building expects some changes to the bill. Of course, if you remember, the building was built on spec. They didn't have a tenant lined up. Now they do. The tenant wanted some changes along the north side of the building, which was going to impact their parking. So they were going to apply for a parking variance. They've since withdrawn that because they don't want to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, but you're going to be receiving red line revisions, presumably at the next meeting on the 30th, associated with this development. At the same time, I'm going to be presumably giving you the site plan for approval for the second building north of it. I felt it was good to get you both the red line and then the building 2 at the same time, because the changes do impact our common property line. But long story short is that some tenant-driven changes were going to require reducing the parking, but that's not going to happen now in this case, so it was withdrawn. The changes are going to be made and they're going to comply with parking requirements. The second item is a request for a special exception and a variance on
Steve?
property. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Shelley. I need to recuse myself from this conversation due to a conflict of interest.
So noted.
This is the commercial building that's on the northeast quadrant of the intersection of South Cannon and the building that the road that runs along behind the stadium, the name of which, no, Cleveland, I'm sorry, Cleveland and Cannon. Cannon runs along behind the stadium. To give you some orientation, the building is a 2-story commercial non-conforming building. It would probably, if they came in for a local conversion overlay, would probably be a prime candidate for a local conversion. It's a non-conforming use with an office use and then 3 apartments above it. Located across Cannon is Memorial Stadium, Municipal Stadium, and then across Cleveland in that triangle area shown in the air photo, that property is an office building. So it's kind of a mixed use area. The applicant is proposing to put a daycare center in the first floor of the 2-story building. The special exception site includes the 2-story building and also the house to the north, which are both under common ownership with the developer. The properties combined are just a little short of the 20,000 square feet required for a special exception use, so they're asking for a variance for that as well. The only new improvements are going to be that a play area for the children would be installed behind the house. There would be a buffer along the north property line, shown in the whiteout put on the photograph that you see there. It's going to be about 4 feet from the property line. I told them that that's going to require a waiver from you all to reduce the required buffer from 10 feet down to 4 feet. If they want to avoid that, they would have to have the landscaping back 10 feet from the property line. They said that they need the space, so they'll probably end up coming to you all at the next meeting for a waiver. But it's for a special exception and variance, about 7 employees, 25 kids total at max. They don't have that now. And again, they're not building any buildings, they're not building any new parking, and the only improvement's going to be play area behind that house.
Well, right now, what's in front of us is whether we want to advise the Board of Zoning Appeals of our thoughts on this request. As far as the planning, I think we need to reserve that to us another time. I do, though, ask Steve, are they going to be required to submit engineering drawings showing all that, or can they just do it by a sketch, hand sketch?
I think given that the improvements are so minimal here, as zoning administrator, I'm okay with dealing with it as a hand sketch, but I can't approve it without the waivers being
Right.
approved as it's currently shown. That would need to come to you all, but you would basically see, oh, Megan, if you could scroll down to the next drawing. This is the special exception exhibit that they've provided. You scroll down a little bit more, or yeah, shrink it the other bit. This is the drawing that they provided. The area toward the bottom right-hand side of the illustration is the play area. There's an alley that runs along back. The building to the upper left in the drawing, that's the two-story commercial building. And then the square building off to the top right, that's the house. But the only improvements they're doing here is a fence and some landscaping and some play equipment. So there's no real need for a site plan. The disturbance is under 500 square feet by the time they put in the fence and a couple of pieces of the play equipment. So there's no real need for a site plan per se, but I can't approve it unless you're okay with reducing the buffer requirement. And they're talking about the possibility of putting in a privacy fence as part of that, which is an acceptable mitigation tactic in the ordinance for reducing landscape buffers.
Okay, well, I was just kind of jumping ahead there. I guess, as I said, first off, what's in front of us today is our possible advice that we might give the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'll wait till after that's done. So
that is all on one lot. Is that correct? Those two buildings?
No, they're on two lots together. They're adjacent under common ownership.
So they're using the total square footage of both lots in order to get to the 1900 or
19,000 change, yeah.
yeah. Well, now what happens if for some reason they decide to split those lots and separate them? Then they're going to be way under the 20,000 square feet.
Yes, as a matter of fact, staff would be recommending a condition be placed, and it's similar to the one that occurred with the ARC, where the two adjacent properties got the variances to go down to 0 for that connecting building. The BZA put a condition on that saying if they ever come under common separate ownership, that the canopy would come down. I could see in this case a similar situation where if they are no longer under common ownership, the special exception is then void.
That sounds good.
And I would suggest that actually you would probably want to weigh in on that and recommend that yourselves in a memo directly to them that I can enter into the record for you. Gives them
I agree.
more weight.
I agree. I think that we should make that recommendation.
Is the rest of the commission okay with that?
Brady?
I am.
Yes.
One thing also to think about in this particular case is this is an existing commercial building. They can come in with a local conversion district and put a store or a restaurant in place. So this is a bit different than just about any other building in any other in a residential zoning district. There's all sorts of other commercial stuff that in theory could go into this property other than the daycare center.
What does that have to do with anything?
The one of the criteria of a special exception is case law known as Schultz versus Pritz. Basically, the BZA, when they review a special exception, it boils down to asking the question of, is it any worse at this location than it would be at any other similarly sized property in that same zoning district? And I think the argument could be made here that it's actually better than most because it's reusing an existing commercial building. If they were doing this a half a block up in the middle of the residential area in a residential building, there's no possibility of some other commercial use going into that other property. So it basically creates an environment here at this particular location where it's actually better here than other places because the zoning or the potential zoning is actually looser on this property than it would be other places.
All right, I was trying to direct the commission to a consensus to write the letter. Let me go back to that and then I'll come back to you. What do we want to address Steve's comments right now? Are you saying if a special exception is granted for a daycare center, that someone can turn that into a restaurant?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is tomorrow, because this building is a non-conforming commercial building in a residential district, somebody could apply for a local conversion overlay tomorrow, regardless of this daycare center. It's I kind of view it as a mitigating factor. But it's-
If I understand, Steve, what you're saying is that one reason for not objecting to this is because in principle, they could do other stuff of a commercial nature using the conversion overlay.
That's correct, which they couldn't do on adjacent properties that just have houses on them. You
Right.
summarized it better than I could, Jim. Thanks.
Well, I'm in favor of Ron's suggestion that we write a letter indicating that our thoughts that if they're going to grant the special exception, they ought to condition it upon the properties remaining in common ownership.
All righty.
I would agree with that.
I think I hear a consensus for that.
Yes.
So Steve, normally I turn to you and ask you to write the letter for my signature. If you could
Sure.
do that. We have all the particulars. All righty. Now, getting back to my earlier comment, I support your position that a full detailed drawing is not needed. And I'm happy to hear you say that, and I support that. So that's the end of that conversation for me.
Okay.
Staff have anything else for us today?
All I have.
Okay, all righty. Then the next thing on the agenda is adjournment.
So move.
Very good. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, folks.